Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here today with Jake, which is an amazing photographer. He has um, create content for us, shoot during Winter Fast Food Expo West this year. We just love his work, and we thought it would be amazing for him to do a webinar where he can teach you a little of like taking photos in, a cheap way, because we understand that like social media, promoting our products, everything needs photos. So I will pass the mic to Jake. Jake, feel free to introduce yourself and then get started. And then, sorry, last thing. If you have questions, make sure that you use the Q&A feature here under your screen, just so we have all those questions in one place and we'll get them answered at the end. So Jake.
Thanks, Patricia. That was amazing. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. And yeah, so I'm Jake Ahles. I have a creative agency for beverage brands called Morel Creative, where we help food and beverage CPG brands achieve tangible business results. So yeah, I've done some work with Startup CPG, and we thought it'd be fun to put together a kind of DIY product photography webinar for you guys. So we just share it up here. Cool. See it?
Yes.
Great. Perfect. So yeah, today should be hopefully a super practical session designed especially for scrappy CPG founders and marketers. So if you've ever felt like your product photos aren't doing your brand justice or actually hurting your sales, you're in the right place. But before we dive in, I always kind of like to ask, and I noticed some people already started doing this on their own, which is great. I'd love to hear more about what your product or brand is, or maybe what your biggest frustration is with DIY product photography. No need to overthink it, just a quick line or two to kind of understand where everyone's coming in from. Thanks, Misha. Yeah, nice job. Okay, so really kind of the intention, because photography without strategy is just a nice picture. So today we'll be talking about some strategic ways to enhance your DIY product photography. At least that's the goal. So a little bit about me before we get started. I've been in the photo and video world, especially in food and beverage, for the last 15 years or so, working with emerging food and beverage brands to build what we like to call Morel Creative strategic visual ecosystems. Some of the brands we've worked with are Chameleon Cold Brew, Maimo Mochi, Bullet, Seedlip, just to name a couple. And we've really seen firsthand how powerful or problematic product photography especially can be, especially at the early stages when you're kind of doing everything yourself and trying to juggle 15 other hats at the same time. So here's the thing. Product photography isn't just about pretty pictures. They're genuine sales tools for retail buyers, online shoppers, and even investors. Everyone who comes into contact with your product for the first time will likely make a snap judgment about it. So we want to lead with our best foot forward. So when product photos are presented in a poor light, pun intended, it can both kill the trust and tank the sale before it even had a chance. Trust is everything when you're asking someone to pick your product off a shelf or invest in your brand. If your photo doesn't say this product is worth it, then the product never gets a chance to prove it. So just to kind of sense check if you're in the right place today. If you're someone taking photos with your phone in your kitchen with limited gear and want something that actually looks polished and consistent, that's really what we'll be talking about today. This isn't about lifestyle shoots or high budget ad campaigns. This is about the stuff that moves your business forward. Product shots for your websites, for buyer decks, social content, wholesale listings, and sell sheets. We'll talk through some examples here shortly, and all the images that you'll see in the next few slides were shot on my 3 generations old iPhone just around the house with no additional lighting other than some of the things we'll talk about here today. Just kind of prove again that it's really not about the gear, it's about the intention that you're putting in to the project. hopefully what you'll walk away today with is an understanding of 5 common DIY photographer mistakes that we've seen and some strategies on how to fix them, with some tips and tricks around lighting, framing, and editing, and why strategy matters more than the gear that you have. And then we'll end with a couple free tools to help you take what we learned today even further. So let's dive on in. We kind of alluded to earlier, lighting is one of the bigger mistakes that we see DIY photographers make with their product photography. Oftentimes we'll encounter photos that just kind of use whatever light's available, from overhead kitchen lights with fluorescent bulbs to direct sunlight, as you can kind of see in this photo here. But here's the catch. Lighting is really the foundation of good photography, so we need to start with good lighting first and foremost. Even the best setup can fall apart if the lighting is off. Direct sunlight creates harsh contrast, as you can see with the shadows and the light spots in here, and can create reflective surfaces on packages like bottles or jars. Fluorescent or overhead lighting, like you might have in your house, creates glare, create light spots, and often weird color shifts, especially if the lighting isn't matched in the room that you're shooting in. So how do we get something that's more clean and even? Window light is really your best friend, especially a north-facing window. If you have access to that, it works great for soft, even light that is indirect, soft, and consistent. If you don't have access to a north-facing window, because obviously not everyone has a north-facing window with nice light coming through, feel free to take your product outside and use a white curtain, maybe a thin white sheet or a pillowcase, or even put some parchment paper over your window to help diffuse that light so it's nice and even and soft across the product. Another pro tip is to angle the light at a 45-degree angle for the most flattering results. And what do I mean by that? So if your light source is up here and shining down on your image this way, rather than coming from the side, as you can see in this image, or from the top or the bottom. We also want to avoid mixing up lights. So if you are shooting in your kitchen near a window, kill the headlights, kill the lights in your kitchen, in your house, and just use the light coming in through the window. And to really get that consistent look across all your images, try and shoot around the same time of day if you need to do multiple days, so that the lighting is similar and coming from the same angle. Just like to say, soft, natural light equals clean, trustworthy, and professional. So tip number 2 relates to the background choices that you use in your image. We notice that this is something that's often really overlooked in DIY product photography. Using a cluttered kitchen counter, something that looks trendy, a messy desk, or a patterned fabric can pull attention away from your product. Even if it feels real or lived in, it can dilute your blend. It can dilute your brand's clarity. The background should really support your product, not steal the spotlight. The background choices you make are really a brand decision, and it should be in line with your brand. If your product is premium, the setting should feel premium. If it's a more natural focused brand or a wellness focused brand, you might want to lean into clean wood, stone, or linen tones. Some other pro tips are to keep it simple and keep it clean. Just use foam board, a cutting board, poster paper, fabric backdrops, even clean countertops, a floor, or flat plates can work really well. So yeah, we really want to use on-brand textures, like reclaimed wood for a rustic brand, concrete for a more modern brand, white marble for a more premium brand. Similarly to lighting, we don't want to mix background colors. Another tip is to remember that colors evoke emotions. So the color choices that you make will evoke an emotion in the viewer or the audience that you're sharing the pictures with. For instance, bright white can feel clean, while a craft paper can feel more natural and earthy. We like to suggest choosing 2 to 3 surfaces you can reuse throughout your brand ecosystem to keep your brand visuals consistent, and always kind of go back to those same key background surfaces. So to kind of recap on backgrounds, we want to keep it clean, keep it intentional. Always ask yourself when you're picking a background surface, does this feel like my brand, or is it drawing attention away from it? The third most common mistake I often see with DIY product photography is not paying attention to the angles or the composition of the photo. If you're shooting crooked, off center, or too tight, you're making it hard for people to actually see your product. A crooked, inconsistent, or overly tight framing that cuts off key details like the label or the shape of the packaging can obviously be distracting and not show your product in the best light. What we really want to go for is a more straight on, centered image that has a bit of breathing room, which might sound counterintuitive, but actually having some dead space in the image helps to draw the eye to the product itself. Some more pro tips on angles and composition is to keep it straight on and centered. Want to keep the product straight on, so you can see all the details without any distortion, like in this one where it makes the product look longer or crooked. We want to allow some breathing room. You don't want to crop it too tight. And for hero images, again, leaving that negative space, especially if you might be using it in a banner image where you might want to put text on it later. If you have some negative space in the image, it allows that space to add some text over it. And then being intentional with verticals and the horizontals. Think ahead. Where will the product image be used? Kind of building off the last tip, kind of bonus tip is almost every phone nowadays has the option to turn on grid lines or use a leveler for both vertical or flat top products. And not using those would be a mistake. If you're shooting crooked or off center, nothing kind of says DIY like a tilted product shot. So make sure you turn on the grid lines. It should be easy to do in the settings on your phone camera. Use the rule of thirds. So the top, both the vertical and the horizontal grid lines, you want to use those to place all around the corners of your product and also to center your product. And then use the leveler to make sure that the product is straight both vertically, or if you're shooting overhead, there's often an overhead like hash that'll move around and then turn a different color once you've got it flat. And another pro tip there is just take multiple shots from the same distance, the same angle, and then pick the cleanest version of those to use in your presentation, whatever that may be. Tip number 4 has to do with editing. And this is something where we see lots of folks kind of really go off the rails with this. They like to really push the saturation, push the contrast, which might look cool on Instagram, but it really kind of distorts what the product actually looks like. Editing, especially for product photography, should be used to correct issues in a photo, not to mask them. You want the product to look like it does in real life while still looking its best. If someone sees your photo and then sees your product in person and they don't match, you've broken that trust that we talked about earlier, because trust leads to sales. So some pro tips are just to start with the basics when you're editing your product photos. Adjust the exposure, the contrast, and the white balance, but don't go beyond that unless you have a really strong intention and really know what you're doing around that. A couple of really great tools are Lightroom Mobile, Visco or VSCO, or even just the native camera editing tools on your phone are generally really sufficient for what you might need to do with these. I always like to suggest using a reference image of your product when you're editing the rest of your photos so that they all look the same across all of your product images. And tip number 5 is really the secret sauce. It's having a strategy attached to your product photography. This is the part that a lot of people skip, and honestly, from my experience, I've noticed it to be the most important. because again, even the most beautiful image won't convert unless it's intentional. So when you're doing product photography, ask yourself, what is the product for? Are you going to use it for direct to consumer? Is it going to go on Amazon? Are you using it to pitch to retailers or distributors? Are you using it in collateral for sell sheets? Is it going on social media, on a website? And does it match the look and feel of your brand? Is it consistent with everything else that you're putting out? From, again, website to social, to trade show collateral, to what you're showing to your buyers. Consistency builds trust, and trust is what gets you the shelf space, PR, and repeat customers. So, went through those quicker than I intended, but here's some free resources if you'd like to kind of dive in further on these. The DIY product photography guide really shares all these tips in more detail and more depth. And if you want to have some fun, there's a product photography quiz that you can answer, and we'll give you back some targeted insights based on the answers that you give it. And we can share those. I can share those links in the chat later if anyone's interested.
We do have a lot of questions.
Okay, great. So, perfect. So we'll get to Q&A in a second. I just wanted to say, if anyone
sorry
wants
about that.
personalized feedback on your photos, I do offer one-on-one deep dive sessions where we can kind of go through your current images. Just shoot me an email at grow@wearemorel.com, and we can chat. But yeah, let's dive into questions.
Awesome. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, all good.
Okay, so what I took note is that, okay, let me go for the Q&A first. So, how do you position the light if we don't have natural light when you have to do a flat lay so that we can avoid shadows?
Sure. So you're shooting in a kitchen or a space, whatever that space may be. And would it just, what lighting source are we talking about? Is it overhead light, or do you have artificial light that you're bringing in?
I would say that is artificial light because I think a lot of them too, like if they have to shoot, at night or at a time that the light is not.
Yeah, tomorrow I'll share the links here. Let me pop the links in real quick.
Yeah, artificial light. She just said it.
Oh, great. Here's those links. And then, yeah, so if you're bringing in artificial light, I would, again, depending on how, are you just shooting an image kind of like this, then I would say you'll want to hopefully have a diffuse artificial light, and if not, grab a sheet or a pillowcase to put in front of your light source. Can you see my mouse on the screen here?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So ideally, you'll have the light coming from the kind of top right, ideally from the top right corner of your product. So the light is shining kind of this way across the product. You can also do it from this side, but the eye kind of more naturally goes this way from top left to bottom right. So for instance, for this image, you would want to maybe place the light kind of this way, have the light source here, and then a sort of diffusion between the light source and the product, create that even light across the scene.
Awesome. Next one, question on composition. Many retail buyers want portrait-oriented product photography. Our product is substantially wider than it is tall, so it looks best in landscape. What's the best way to handle that tension?
Oh, so they want it like a vertical image versus a horizontal image. Yeah, that's a great question. If everyone wants it in kind of portrait vertical, then I would suggest, is it like a tin? Is it a can? Is it round or is it flat? If it's round, then I would put it on like a tabletop, and then you can shoot kind of this way, but kind of crop it in so that there's still a vertical space, but your product is centered in the image, and there's less space on either side. Like you still want to have a bit of breathing room in there. If it's a flatter product, you can still do an overhead shot, which will be probably more pleasing, unless there's a liquid in it. And yeah, kind of the same idea, right? I don't have a good example to pull up here. But yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of comes down to cropping the image so that the product itself is taking up more of the horizontal space so that there's less dead space in there. That makes sense.
Oh yeah, Jared didn't say anything else. I was trying to see,
Okay.
but if he follows up, we can answer that again. When it comes to pictures of food for recipes, would you also be conservative with saturation?
Are they, so these were specifically for product photos they may be putting in a sell sheet. Um, if they're recipe pictures, I would always caution against going too heavy on the saturation, because eventually it starts to look unreal, which could be displeasing. But if you're using them just for social media or for some other lifestyle images, then I would say it's more dictated by what your brand visual identity is. So if you have a very bright and poppy brand, then you want your recipe photography to match that. If you're more on the emotional, moody side, then you might want to be more muted.
Great. What tips do you have for shooting glossy product packaging?
Glossy product packaging, that's always a tough one. Again, that's why diffusion is a really big friend for anything that's glossy. Having that soft natural light, as you can see here, right? So this was kind of a glossy can, and you get that harsh glare on it. You use some soft diffusion. Again, even if it's a sheet from your bed or a pillowcase, or if you want to put some parchment paper up on a window, then that'll help create a softer light across the image. I would also say if it's like a glass that's really super reflective and you're trying to do a top-down image, you might want to put something above the image so that it's not reflecting your ceiling or any like a chandelier that might be up there, and try and shoot it that way. Another thing you could do if you really want to get more granular is with something on top of the image, cut a hole, like say you have a spare sheet, cut a hole in the sheet and put your camera through that. So all that's reflecting back on the product is the camera lens. And you can try and angle the lens so that it's not reflecting on the reflective surface, but maybe on the label. The label's less reflective.
That's a good one. How to maintain consistency and cohesive look throughout all imagery when shooting different scenarios, seasonal items. For example, shooting for summer versus winter, but it still wants the overall look to be cohesive.
Right. So it's a great question. There's for product photography that doesn't necessarily apply as much because it's, product photography is really just for the plain image. You don't necessarily need to have seasonality in it. For more kind of seasonal or lifestyle type of images, again, you want to do a deep dive onto what are kind of the ingredients that make up your brand's DNA, and then how do you apply that throughout all of your images, right? Like you don't want your winter images to be super saturated and busy, and then your summer images to be very plain, right? You want to have a cohesion across, like using the same color schemes, using the same messaging along with the products that you're using, and the props and images and everything like that.
You. What's a good background for white packaging?
There's various ways that you can go about that, right? Is it more of a upscale premium brand, or is it more of a natural brand. For a more upscale premium brand, you could play with a black marble and get that contrast. Or more premium brand, still wood or concrete or something, a natural type of surface could work really well for that too.
Do you recommend a photography box for shooting small CPG products such as jars?
It's not something I've had a ton of success with, but I've seen people use them really well. If you're trying to just get that kind of white, super transparent background, then they can be great. If you want something with a little bit more substance to it, I would use more backgrounds that speak to the product that you speak to your brand.
And then talking about equipment, what would you recommend as like a basic equipment for brands to start shooting good content?
I mean, the most basic would be your phone and a bed sheet, right? If you can, you can use a chair as a stand. But if you want to kind of upgrade from there, you want to upgrade, I would start with lighting. So you can grab it's like an LED light box on Amazon per se. Just make sure that it has a consistent color tone. And a diffuser that comes with it. For instance, like I use, this off real quick. This is probably a bit more expensive than you'll want to go for. This is called a Pocket Light Falcon 7. It has various features on it, but it has a little diffuser on it, so you can take it off and put it back on. And you can adjust the color tone and things like that to match what you're shooting. But something kind of in that arena is a great place to start. You can even grab a ring light. The light UVA is called a Falcon 7. Right? Yeah, F7 pocket light. But even just like a ring light that you might use for Zoom calls can be a great stand-in for product photography as well.
What about those boards? You know how you can just buy a background as like a board?
Yeah.
Do you like recommend a brand having a few of those to
I
make
would.
it
Yeah.
easy?
Those can be great. They really nice ones can be surprisingly expensive for what you might think they would be. But they are very versatile. They last really long and they always look really nice. They're typically made to not reflect light, which is nice. And they're easy to store. So you can get a few that are branded or like within your brand visual identity. Then that might also be a good way to play with that seasonality that we were talking about with an earlier question.
Okay, awesome. This is a more specific question. I have still lights. Is it okay or should I get flash on camera or off camera? I have a camera and currently running Nanlite 200W and 60Ds. Let me know what you think.
No, I think that's a really great setup. I actually prefer static light to strobe lights or flash. It helps me kind of visualize the shot before I hit the shutter. Unless you're doing something that needs really high lights, flash can get a lot brighter than most static lights for the same price. So unless you need something that's super bright, I recommend static over strobe. But then lights are great.
Cool. Okay, now we're gonna talk about apps and platforms. Nubia would love to learn about a flow process on how to organize image from taking to selecting the good ones to saving the edit or the ones posted to the ones WIP. Sorry, I don't know what that means.
With your product, maybe? I'm not sure. Okay, so I can tell you the way I do it. So I use Lightroom. I use Lightroom Classic on my desktop. So after a photo shoot, I'll import all the images into I'll break it down by the brand and then the shoot. So I'll add all the images into that folder. Then I'll go through and flag all the ones that I like. And once I have that, I'll go through and start making the tweaks and the edits that I need to them. I might star them to kind of give them another level of I like this photo, let's say, of choice. And then I would, yeah, then export the photos to a folder on my desktop, or send them to my phone if I'm going to post them on social, unless you're using a scheduler, which I recommend also. And honestly, the way I do it, I would have a folder for unused photos, another folder for posted photos, and you can move them over as you either schedule them to post or as you post them live. Does that answer that question sufficiently?
Yeah, I believe so. I can talk a little about my experience because I mean I create content for Instagram, but could kind of be the same. But I just use my phone, so I basically create albums within my iPhone, and I'll post like, if this is like recipe content or this is a product photo. So it's when I like, or just like B-roll. So when I like go look for content that I need as well, it's like already separated versus just going through my whole camera roll trying to find something. Um, and then yeah, I would just like take photos and then start to delete, just go through all of them end of the day or the next day and delete the one I didn't like. Otherwise, my phone is just like, I need too much space otherwise.
Yeah, photos can take up a ton of space, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, next question. Any tips for shooting a smaller size product in a lifestyle photo setting?
Tips for shooting a small product in a lifestyle setting. In how are there's a lot of variables that we could chat about with that, right? Is it with talent? Are we doing lifestyle, like recipe tutorials, flat lays, etc.? So, again, I would, before you even kind of go to that, I would go back to determining what are kind of the different content pillars, the different strategies that you'll be using for the product, and where will they be used. But for a smaller product, I mean, it's obviously highlighting the product itself, whether it's like featured bigger in the image or being used somehow in the photo. Yeah, if we get some more kind of specificity on that, it's kind of a broad question to try and answer broadly.
Mm. My product's packaging uses aluminum materials, so it bounces lights a lot. What would be a good solution to minimize the shines and shadows? I do have
Yeah,
access to natural lighting.
great. So yeah, kind of again, I would really lean into either using natural lighting, or if you want to bring in artificial light, but really focusing on creating a space that isn't reflective. So what I mean by that is having the light diffuse and then maybe using some sort of material over or around the image so that it's not reflecting any harsh light sources back to you. That's really why having diffused lighting is so key, is so that it's not focused on one spot. It bleeds naturally and smoothly across the product.
Next one, what tips can you offer for shooting pouches of energy gummy snacks that do not show a lot of volume, but do have a gusset so can stand? Sorry, I don't know if I pronounced that right. When I shoot them, they look flat.
So there's not, so the package, there's not, the product in the package looks flat because the product inside isn't creating a lot of dynamic in the product itself.
Yeah.
It's a great question. I think for that, I might recommend, or I would at least play with shooting it rather than doing like a flat lay, having it angled up on a surface. So you might want to create a little bit of a set of sorts, let's say. So you could try it. A kind of easy solution to try anyways would to be a chair where you can put a sheet, like let's say this is a chair, that works, right? And then draping a sheet so it kind of comes smoothly down. You get a little bit of an angle between the back and the seat of the chair. You're kind of creating what we would call like a seamless background. And then angling the product on the seat of the chair. You might want to put a cutting board or something underneath the sheet on the seat of the chair so it's flat, and that might help get some more volume to the product.
Sorry, I was just answering. I just dropped the link with the guide that you can find at tip 5. Okay, I think we answered this. Should I use still lights or flash?
Yeah, I mean, really dealer's choice. I prefer static or still light to flash for most applications. Flash definitely has its purpose depending on what you're doing, but static light's also a lot easier to approach for someone that doesn't have a lot of lighting experience. It's kind of what you see from the static light is what the image will look like versus flash. It flashes before you actually see the image, right? So it makes it easier to set up what you're going to be shooting.
Yep. Okay, if I have 3 sizes of a product, do I need to show all 3 sizes in the photo on site or just list the size with one image?
I would say more is better. I mean, some retailers may want to see the different sizes and different applications. You may also be pitching one product size to, I'm not sure what you're selling, but maybe you're doing an on-premise sale and they want just the small size of it. So you want to showcase that versus like DTC. Also, if you have a product page and you're selling e-commerce, you can show the different sizes. So when someone's selecting on your website, they can see what the different sizes look like.
Okay, someone said that they have the same light that you show, the little one, and struggle with it. Do you put a sheet over that? What tone do you start with?
Sure. So are you using, there's a diffuser that comes with it, which I'm using right now. But if you need more diffusion, well, you can adjust the brightness of the light, right? So you can start playing with that. So I'm doing that right now. I don't know if you can tell, right? Like that's turned down and then just go up, get more light intensity. And in terms of color tone, I like to be around 4600 Kelvin. I just think it's a nice color tone. And what's really kind of important, though, doesn't matter as much on your phone because you'll probably be using auto white balance, but something like between 46 and 5200 is a more natural tone, but making sure you're matching, either using auto white balance or matching that tone on whatever camera you're using. So if you're shooting with a prosumer camera or DSLR, then you can set the white balance and make sure it matches the white balance that's on the light that you're using. And that kind of goes for anyone, right? Like, so all light sources have a natural light tone. So if you're shooting with something that has an incandescent bulb in it, it'll have a color temperature. So make sure you're matching that color temperature to your camera settings to get more, it'll just look way more natural and be way easier to edit if you need to edit it.
And would you say that, like, if I'm creating content, maybe, when the lighting is not so good out, should I have 2 of those so I can put like in diagonal as you showed before?
Yeah,
Would
definitely.
that be helpful?
That could definitely be really helpful. You can even use that to mirror, like if you have a window light that you're using for one side, you can use a light like the Falcon 7 as well on the other side if you want to really kind of get that more like super even lighting if it's not working out with just the window light. But again, make sure that you're balancing. I remember off the top of my head, sun has a color temperature. It can vary throughout the day, but make sure you're matching those color tones so you're not having contrasting colors. It's the benefit of either using two of the same light sources or just one light source.
Got it. And then, sorry guys, I'm going to continue the question, but I do have a very important question. It's also about lighting. What I notice is that sometimes when I create content and we think that like we need all the lights on, especially like in the bathroom. And the lighting, even though I'm using a ring light or a light like yours I have, it doesn't like look as a high quality versus when I turn the lights off and I
Right.
just use the ring light. I know it's like my face versus a product basically, but I have tried the products too. Would you say that it's more beneficial to turn the like ceiling out light off?
Yeah. Yeah. I would do that if you're doing a product shoot or a portrait like you're talking about. Just use your primary light source, either your ring light, for instance. That's either, that light is made for photography versus ceiling lights, which are made for just daytime. But then you're also mixing different light colors and tones and styles, which can lead to it not looking as nice or high quality.
Okay, yeah, when I discovered that I was like, whoa, that's because we think that we need all the lights we can
Right.
get.
If you had a bunch of lights that were all the same, right, and place them around you, that could be a different story. But even then, you don't necessarily want light coming from every single angle, because you want to be able to kind of contour the light and have it fall on your face or on a product in a specific way to kind of achieve the look.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Okay, someone asked about the boards that I mentioned. I will put a link in the chat. I just did a very quick research on Amazon, but again, there are tons of boards out there. I know there are specific companies that sell those boards that are very expensive, but Amazon has like a lot of
Yeah.
different. So I'll drop the link here in the chat, but in the meantime, let me just go to the next question. What would you recommend when shooting a hydration vest, which looks different from the front, back, and side? Flat versus a mannequin or a person, or how to make it look as if it's suspended in air?
So what was the product?
Is a hydration vest
Hydration vest. Um,
that it looks different from all sides, like
right,
front.
because it goes on a person, right? So you can either, I don't know if it stands on its own. If not, you can again kind of use that kind of chair situation we were talking about, or create a little set where you can stand it, or be even using, you can get some like wooden dowels to kind of prop it up that you can hide behind the straps, or using some other sort of support structure to keep it up. You might have to build something custom for it. Um, Another option could be, if you have access, you could try getting some fishing wire and suspending it with fishing wire that you can then edit out later, or if you shoot it in a way that you can't see it, fishing wire is pretty easy to hide. The only thing to caution with that is sometimes it makes, like if you're using the shoulder straps, right, it might make the shoulder straps look a bit pointy rather than angled. So you might want to put something underneath the straps to kind of create that angle first before you put the fishing wire under the straps.
And then what are your thoughts on product photography that leans more on the UGC side than professional for social media marketing on Instagram?
Yeah, I think that goes back to understanding who your brand is and who your audience is. If you're selling, especially if you're selling specifically online to, if you're selling on TikTok Shop, you're not necessarily going after distributors and retailers or on-premise sales. That definitely create the photography in a way that speaks to your audience.
Mm-hmm. And then do you have any tips when you create content more like the UGC style versus for like lighting or camera or anything versus the like product photography? Anything is different from what you said today?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, I think you can still use all those same principles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you're doing like UGC out in the wild, I'm kind of guessing then, or if you're doing UGC in your home, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's all kind of pretty much the same, right? It all kind of starts with using a light source that's going to look nice and paying attention to the angles and the composition in the background. But yeah, doing it in a way that speaks to your brand and to your audience. Maybe your brand is busier if you're selling it to TikTok Shop or something like that, and you want to have a busier background and that works for you, then definitely, again, everything we talked about today, they're just principles, right? They're rules. They're not
Yep.
hard and fast. You can bend them, mold them, break them. These are just some best principles that we've seen be successful for the majority of brands that we've worked with in both cases.
Okay, cool. Any tips for shooting a stand-up pouch with it contents laid flat? Oh, it contents sachets laid flat in front of it. It's hard to get an angle that makes both look good.
Can you say that again? I'm not sure I understood.
Yeah, that was any tips for shooting a stand-up pouch uh with contents laid flat in front of it? So with extra, I think, products
Oh,
in front of it. It's hard to get an angle that makes both look good.
yeah. Is there any reason to not lay the pouch down so that I'm guessing you
I
want
think
to have
you
like,
want to take one up and others
yeah.
down.
So I'm guessing you want the pouch to be up and then you want to have some ingredients from the product or like the product itself around the bottom of it. Yeah, so like, why not just put it flat and have the ingredients around it that way? I think would be probably more flattering. Otherwise, it'll be hard to see them both. I mean, you could do like a 45-degree kind of angle on it, but then the product's going to be kind of skewed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, whenever I've done that kind of ingredient type of shot, I've always done it. I found what looks most flattering is to have the product flat. If you're worried about like maybe the bottom of it is bigger, so you're worried about being kind of angled like that, then you can maybe put something under the top of the image or under the bottom of the top of the product that will be hidden. Like it could just be like not a marble, but
A little rock,
like a little
anything.
rock or something, yeah. So that it's not angled back, but it's actually flat, and then you can put the ingredients around it that you want to feature in the product photo.
Yeah, so your best tip would be for everything to be flat.
For this specifically, right? I mean, unless you, again, like we are talking about the other pouch that didn't look good flat, I would try putting it up, shooting it on like a seamless background, which you can do with any of these, right? As a seamless background, it's harder to make than just putting something on the ground, which is already kind of a built-in seamless.
Yeah. Um, so I'm going over. Do you have any recommendations of software slash app that can use the pictures or image and improve the imperfections and make videos as well that are affordable or free in the market?
That can make videos from your stills or also shoot videos.
I think it's to improve the imperfections and also make videos.
I don't know one that does both stills and videos. I don't really use any apps personally for video. Um, so I'm not the best to speak on that, but for photos, my best recommendation is Lightroom Mobile. I'll type that in here. Or even Photoshop. They've got Photoshop, especially now. Again, that's paid for. Lightroom Mobile, I think, has a free version. But if you want to pay for Adobe Creative Cloud, then actually, I guess Lightroom is probably on Adobe Creative Cloud also. But also, like Canva has some really great editing. But again, Creative Cloud, they have some really great kind of AI features in there, so you can kind of like highlight something, add it, change it to something else, or remove imperfections.
Mhm.
Or as well as just kind of some healing brush tools.
Yeah. I would say for videos, CapCut has a
Yeah,
lot of templates that, people put out there, and you just have to select the videos you want and making sure that you select the right part of the video, and then it creates the video for you
yeah.
based on
I've heard great
that.
things about CapCut also.
Yeah, that could be a good one for helping creating videos. What if you have to shoot in a shower, bath product without windows? What kind of lighting would you recommend?
You have to shoot in a
In a
shower.
shower.
Um, yeah, I mean, I would recommend an artificial light like a Amazon or the Falcon 7. I'm going to see if I can quickly find something on Amazon that maybe a cheaper version. That just is still sharing.
Yes.
There we go. Yeah, there's a brand called Newer, Neewer, that makes a lot of great affordable things. If there's anything that stands out here.
Newer is a good brand.
Yeah. There's also Small Rig. I don't know if they make LED panels like that, but I would start with checking out some stuff from Newer. Depending on the configuration, right? You can either grab some stands as well to prop up the light, which would be super helpful.
Mm-hmm. And turn the bathroom light off.
Yeah, turn off the bathroom light. You know, there's I won't get into that right now. But yeah, I guess, are you shooting in the shower? Or are you shooting the product in the shower? We could, if you want to shoot me an email, we can chat more about what your setup is and maybe some more practical tips on how to specifically handle that situation.
Jake just dropped the name right before your message. Newer, Neewer.
Yeah, they're a great, affordable, really just lighting company.
Yeah, I have their products. I really like it.
Yeah.
Any tips for when you're doing a flat lay and you have like a pasta sauce to not roll over? How do you like
like a bottle?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like we were talking about the pouch, right? Put a couple little, like even just small pebbles, one on each side of the bottle, that will be hidden by the contours of the jar. That'll stop it from rolling.
Awesome. Jalma, I would ask you to email Jake if that's possible, because your questions are like very specific. For like the lighting kit you got, but they have a Nikon camera and an all-purpose lens, 18 to 200 millimeters. This is well, they are at, and then the micro 60 and small 50 millimeter lengths. Which one would be better for shooting products?
50 millimeters is kind of the go-to. But also, if you want to do like more portrait-y kind of look, kind of the sweet spot for that could also be in like the 85 range.
Okay. Yeah, and then the other question is very specific. So if you can email him, that will be great. I think that we cover all questions.
Great.
Do you want to put your email here again?
Yeah.
People can contact you if anyone miss it. And again, Jake said that you guys can email him, so feel free if you have any follow-up questions.
Or you can find me, I'll put my LinkedIn here too.
Oh, wait, now I notice you're just messaging hosts. I dropped it again. But yeah, awesome. Well, I appreciate everyone that joined us. As I said, we are gonna add this recording to our YouTube in the next days and then email everyone. But yeah, feel free to email Jake. Also, his LinkedIn is here. Let me just.
Thanks, Louis. Thanks, Laura. Thanks everyone for being here. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for all the questions too. I hope that was very helpful. But again, he's always available. He's great to work with. So feel free to email him.
Yeah, love to chat.
Really appreciate your time, Jake. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Patricia. Talk to you later.
You too. Bye.